do is that I'm a singer, and I'm here to tell you that this is backwards.
Oh! Oh my goodness. That makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
We try.
This is backwards too.
Thank you.
No problem. See, I should be able to bend this up, but I can't. This is weird. You know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna hold it. So, I can't, there's not good overlighting here. If you can't see my face, find me on Facebook. I got a great profile picture. Okay, this is my story about trust. Well, give me one of those things. I trusted my father to always do the right thing because he constantly barked at my sister and me about how hard he was working for us to have a good home, to go to good schools, to go to college, etc. My father was the first black man ever hired at Western Electric in their managerial program. That eventually turned into AT&T for you kids out there. He did a lot of good, helping other black folks get jobs, being the president of the NAACP chapter, and integrating the Kiwanis and Lions civic organizations. I grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania in the 70s. In hindsight, though, there were signs I shouldn't have trusted him as much as I did. He was of the generation of men who did not cry and were not affectionate with their family. From the time I was 4 years old, I knew that he and my mother didn't have a very loving relationship. When I was 5, I remember being awakened by a huge fight they had one night. They were yelling at each other, and she grabbed a giant glass ashtray and tried to smash him in the head with it, but he ducked and it wound up smashing on the fireplace. Another time, I remember coming home after a trip to Philadelphia to see my mom's family and my cousins and finding a comb under the bed with blonde hair in it. I hid it from my mother. As a teenager, I would discover just how untrustworthy he was and what an asshole he was. It was May 2nd, 1988, a day that started off really great and ended up really shitty. It was my mother's birthday, and I celebrated her all day. Page turn. I made her breakfast in bed. I got my entire 8th grade class to sign a giant card for her, because she would come to our class and hang out and stuff like that. I baked her a birthday cake in home economics class. So shout out to home ec. A few of my best friends came home with me that day and surprised her with balloons and gifts and sang for her. It was fantastic. She was so incredibly happy. Later that night, I went to my best friend in the whole wide world, Erin McGinley's house, for a party. Before my mom took me to Erin's, she dropped off my younger sister, Addie, at her best friend's house, Tony. My sister was going to spend the weekend there, and she was very excited about it. She was 8, a skinny little thing with a very sweet smile, my rotten kid sister, who to this day I love very much. My father was working the late shift that night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. He left around 8:30 so he could get dinner on campus before he started working. Everything seemed pretty normal. My mom dropped me off at Erin's around 8. I kissed her and my sister goodbye and ran through the open garage and into the house. I helped Erin carry her album collection downstairs to her living room, and we spilled them out all over the shag rug where we would be all hanging out that night. Other kids started to arrive. We were laughing, playing games, and having a great time. About 2 hours later, my mother called, Mrs. McGinley called me to the phone. "Crystal, it's your mother. Something's wrong with your father." She handed me the phone. "Crystal, get your things and meet me at the bottom of the driveway. I'm coming to get you. We're going to get your father. I'm picking up your sister right now." "What? Is he okay?" "Mom is." Click. "Just get your things and get down to the bottom of the driveway. We'll be there in 10 minutes. Click, click. Erin ran over to me, her long, shiny brown ponytail swaying with a big smile. "Hey, we're singing along to your favorite monkey song." She looked at me and her smile disappeared after she saw my face. I was in complete shock. My mother never yelled at me, ever. "What's wrong? You look like you saw a ghost." Mrs. McGinley walked over with my stuff. I heard a blaring car horn. "I gotta go." I shrugged my shoulders and welled up with tears. Erin and her mother hugged me hard. I turned and headed for the garage. I could see my mother careening down the street until she screeched to a halt in front of the house. I got to the shotgun side and looked in the back seat. My sister was half asleep and crying. Mom rolled the window down and yelled, "Hurry up and get in!" I opened the door, jumped in the seat, and slammed it shut. "Mom, what's going on? We're going to get your father." She was seething and shaking. I'd never seen her like that before. "At the hospital? No!" She stomped her foot on the gas and we took off like a jet. My mother was speeding at 80 miles an hour, which she never did. I was freaking the fuck out, and my sister was crying and dazed in the back seat. "Mom, where are we going?" I screamed right in her face. We were on the local highway now, speeding off into the night. She just sat there. I said, "We're going to get your father." "What? Are we going to the hospital? Where is he? Is he dead? What?" We passed by my junior high school. I looked at the dashboard and saw it was 11:30. Suddenly we took an off-ramp and swerved around to the Allen Wood Motel. My bus passed it every day. The sign for it never lit up properly. The logo was straight out of the 60s. A big owl with bugged-out eyes. A dingy, opaque white plastic. It was a creepy little spot semi-hidden by tall pine trees where truckers stayed. Where the hell are we going? Oh my God. Mom turned the headlights out, and I could barely see. Then I saw it. A white TR7 parked in front of one of the rooms. I looked at her. Her eyes were red and her face was streaked with tears. "Here he is." She turned the lights back on and aimed them right at the room. She flicked on the high beams and laid on the horn. "Brap! Brap!" Lights flickered on in other rooms. I saw silhouettes of people pulling back curtains. "Brap! Brap!" She yelled out of her window, "Come out here now, you motherfucker! I brought your daughters to see you, who you really are!" I was gobsmacked. I opened the door and stepped out of the car. I see a tall shadow in the window. It was my father, all right. He's pulling his pants up, and then I see a short female figure run up to the window before going to the door and opening it. It's a young white girl, in her underwear. I am frozen. Then I open the back door and try to calm my sister down. She's scared to death and sobbing. Mom opens the door and stands there leaning on the horn. "Brap! Brap! Get out here, you son of a bitch! Your daughters are here to see you! Brap!" People started emerging from their rooms, looking shocked. I saw my father in a motel room with a young white girl. What the fuck did I just see? A mirage? "Crystal, go get the manager." "What? The manager? Why?" "Just go get him." I wrapped my sister tightly in her sleeping bag and laid her down on the floor in the back of the car. I got out of the car, locked her door, and shut it. Then I walked around the back and saw Mom lean down and reach under her seat and pull out a gun. "Mom, what the fuck?" I ran around the car, grabbed the gun, and threw it back into the car. It landed on the front, on the passenger side floor. She started yelling again. "Bernard Isaac Durant, get out here right now! Brap!" Fucking horn. All of a sudden, my father dashed out the door for his car. He was 8 shades of ash, his shirt open, tie flying around his neck with a jacket under his arm, his work clothes. He was just supposed to be at work. Oh my God, his face, like a vampire just drained him. He froze for a moment. "Jesus Christ, Joyce, why did you bring the kids?" "Because I wanted them to learn a lesson. They can't trust their father." He continued for his car, fumbled with his keys. Mom yelled, "Get in the car!" He finally got in, started the engine, and began to back out of the parking space, peeling out like a fast and furious driver. We jumped back in the Cadillac and the engine roared. Brap! Jesus, the fucking horn. My father started to pull out of the lot, but his lights weren't on, and he was swerving not to hit any cars. Then the girl sprinted from the room, ran up to his window, and started banging on his window. Her skirt was slung low, her shirt totally open, blue sneakers, I could see her bra, she had her other things balled up in her arms. "Hey, you can't leave me here! How will I get home?" He slowed down because she was holding onto the door handle. "My mother is going to kill me! Take me back home! You can't leave me here!" I took a good long look at her. She looked like she was in college, a little over 5 feet tall, very fair with long red hair. like a girl you'd see stomping around in an Irish Day parade or on an Irish Spring commercial. Squeaky clean, Irish Catholic. She looked like she was 18 or so. Holy shit. She had freckles. She kept screaming hysterically at my father to stop the car while he drove in a tight circle, finally with his lights on. She kept dropping stuff and picking it up and yelling and chasing after the car. This went on for about the longest minute of my life. Then he finally stopped the car. She got into the passenger side, and he spun out, almost rolling the car. He let her in the fucking car. Is he really gonna drive her home? It was a fucking nightmare. Brap! Mom, where the hell did you get the gun? Never mind, we're gonna follow your father and that little bitch to her house. She smashed on the gas and we went flying out of the lot right on his tail. She flicked on the high beams. Brap! My father ended up cheating on my mom throughout their entire marriage. During a time when my mother was sick and dying, my father was off fucking other women. Eventually she died of a heart attack, what I and my sister figured out was dying of a broken heart. They were still married at the time, believe it or not. They never got divorced. But karma is a bitch. In the end, the woman that he was fucking while my mother was sick and dying left him bankrupt. My relationship with my father never survived that moment and ultimately fucked up most of my trust issues with men. And after a decade on the couch and chalking up this all to experience, I learned to recognize red flags that have kept me from dating men like my father. Thank you.